We spend a significant portion of our lives at work. So, it's crucial for our workplace environment to be enriching and motivating, and for the company that we work for to have a human rights approach. And although we consider this a bare minimum, sometimes even these basic standards are not fulfilled, and employees are deprived for essential human rights in their working environment. This negative trend gets even more noticeable in bigger companies and corporations, which obviously have more employees, and these trends just get amplified within the bigger number of people. So, for example, in the UK, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, or EHRC, received thousands of complaints related to workplace discrimination and harassment each year. In the UK, a Stonewall study also found that 35% of LGBTQ+ employees had hidden their identity at work because of discrimination, which definitely proves the point that human rights are not always respected within the workplace environments. Globally, the gender pay gap remains a significant issue, and in many countries, women earn less than men for similar work, for similar amount of work. And these breaches of human rights only get more serious if we talk about more marginalized individuals. But in this episode of Youth Squad, as we usually do in our episodes, we will talk about a positive example, something that we can call a change maker, and that can serve as a role model when it comes to respecting human rights and praising diversity in the workplace. With me today here in this episode is Jovana. She is a customer experience training manager at Cake. Jovana is an employee within Cake, which is a software company that is behind the infamous time tracking app Clockify, team communication app Bumble, and Playkey, a project management app. I hope I pronounced it all well.
Yes, you did.
Hello, Jovana. Welcome to Youth Squad. How are you?
Hi, Maria. Thank you. And yeah, I feel great today.
Oh, nice to hear that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for accepting the invitation to be a part of our series. I hope you have a pleasant time here with us. So, can you tell us the story about how you ended up in Cake? Like, what made you apply for a job there?
Yeah, of course. So maybe I can start in general how that journey began. I actually developed myself at that period of life, if I can put it that way. So that was around 2 years ago. Actually, I had my work birthday a couple of days ago. It was so nice. So
congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, I celebrated, on my own, but yeah. So around 2 years ago, I was actually in the half of my studies. So I was second year, and I've been studying human resources management. So, of course, everything that I've been learning so far through different subjects, it was honestly kind of not the practice that I witnessed within the workplaces that I've been to. And then, of course, when I wanted to move a bit from some student jobs and, to enter the corporate world, I started exploring. And of course, for me, it was important that I have a place where, I can start. But I did understand that I would have to probably, start with some company that is maybe not as, it's not as ideal as it should be, right? I mean, you don't get to choose when you're 20. At least that's what we all think so. But actually then, while I was browsing through job opportunities and so on, I was also looking for a lot of internships and so on. One day, I actually read an interview of CEO of Cake, or former Coing, and that's Nenad Milanovic. And I was just reading the interview about the diversity in the workplace and about social inclusion. And while I was reading, I was like, impossible, especially because
you didn't believe what you were reading, right?
No, not at all, especially because usually those articles are being written by some American magazines, and you can see that in the IT companies, maybe in some West countries and so on. But this was a story about a company coming from Serbia and operating in Serbia, so giving job opportunities in Serbia. And what I actually read is that that entire article was kind of focused on Nenad's story on how he's fostering the inclusiveness within our company. So basically, at the time, he was telling a story how they managed to cope with homophobia in the workplace. And for me at the time, that was like unimaginable, you know. And then,
especially in Serbia, which, as we know, doesn't have the legislative, procedures and systems and mechanisms to support LGBTQ plus rights.
Yeah, not at all. So what I read is that they kind of wanted to, you know, create a community of people who are not just like diverse and open-minded, but also that are kind of more oriented to work with also diverse people. So while I was reading through that entire interview, of course, I was Googling and I was like, oh my God, this is such an amazing company, you know. And first of all, I thought maybe it's just some maybe small startup. Maybe they don't even have a branch in Serbia. Maybe they do have a branch in Serbia, but, you know, only for some job positions that I will never get and so on. And then I actually found, because at the time, even though that I'm studying human resources, I wanted to enter the corporate world, and I did understood that I would have to take some, maybe, like, you know, some entry position, basically. So I was looking for maybe some administrations, and I mean, if I got lucky, maybe that would be an internship within human resources team, but I understood that probably it's going to be some administration, and then I'll manage, I'll move up, hopefully, or I'll at least gather some experience and so on. So I browsed the positions, and all of the positions were like senior developer that, UI, UX design that. And I was like, no. I don't know how to do these things, but I will learn, you know, for this company. And, you know, I was like dropping off my faculty immediately, enrolling somewhere else, you know. But you know, sometimes you read or you find out about those type of companies, about those type of jobs, and you allow yourself like 5 minutes to dream how it would be to be
fantasize.
there. Yeah. Like you're like, it was so nice to know that this amazing thing exists, but you know, nothing. Yeah. Back to my ordinary life. And as I was scrolling, I actually read, like, it was the position, and it was like support agent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was like, no way, you know. And I opened the position, and at the time, I actually didn't want to work in support. So I was not ready for that maybe amount of stress and so on. But actually, when I read the article, like the job listing, I noticed that this is support usually done from a company to another company. So you're not working with civil society, you're actually working mostly with other businesses. And you're mostly working like on emails and chats and so on. And for me, that was fine at the moment because, I don't know, I just couldn't imagine myself, you know, someone screaming at me on the phone and me panicking, like, no. And then as I continued to read, I was like just amazed by the entire job listing. And I was like, okay, maybe I should actually apply, you know. And then I went back to the interview, to the article, you know, and I continued reading. And I just couldn't believe what I read through the entire article. I just kept thinking, no way, you know. Like, how can you do that in Serbia? How can you know, ask people not to be homophobic, or how to ask them not to behave in inappropriate way? Because I know we should all, you know, behave professionally when we are at work, but the thing is that I didn't face that so far.
And was it like within the job description, were there any signs or any direct, you know, sentences and statements of which were communicating the values of the company? Yeah.
Actually, yes. So kind of it was written that the community of the company and like the entire corporate culture is oriented to be as inclusive and diverse. And also what I did read in the article of the interview is that when you like apply and when you have the HR interview and so on, that they will kind of check that with you, maybe, you know.
Check your values as well.
Yeah, basically
Wow.
to check your values. And it's not that they will ask like, are you homophobic or do you have anything against, you know, gay people? It's not like as straightforward, but it's actually more oriented maybe like, what do you think about having legislation that would allow same-sex couples to be married in Serbia or something like that?
I mean, obviously, the straightforward questions could be faked, and you can always answer in order for your benefits. But this is a way better approach to the job interview. So 2 years, fast forward 2 years from then, and you're here, like you're celebrating your 2 years birthday within the company that you found so interesting and so amazing at the moment when you came across the information about it. And what would you say now? Do you think that have your fantasies come true over the time?
Definitely yes. I mean, the thing about like entering the company and so on, I think that even now, like actually what I would like to maybe tell my story. When I came to the company, I was like kind of shocked for at least first month or two, because everyone is so nice. Like the entire procedure of me entering the company, getting a job and so on, it was really great. And for me that was like really important, because as a side I'm also a youth worker, so like everything that I'm doing on a side and all of the values that I have and opinions, they were kind of being shared with other people with no prejudice, you know. And I didn't have to filter myself. That was so weird for me, because at usually I always had to, you know, filter what we will talk about in our breaks or something like that. So fast forwarding 2 years, I'm like right now sometimes doing the introductions with the new people, meaning that usually they have some onboarding sessions with me. And still I see that people are kind of, you know, they're being weirded out that things are going so smooth and that people are so nice and that people are kind of great. And I think
they're at the same place where you were 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I think that honestly, like right now, we grew so much as a company. For example, I was, I think, 117th employee, and right now we have over 400 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I think that today we don't even have to, you know, ask all of those questions in the interviews with the HR and so on. But I think it's more oriented that our values are clear, and usually people who do share them are, you know, kind of applying. It's
basically you built your identity and your reputation around certain values, and so no one who doesn't agree with them or is in line with them won't basically even bother to apply, which is awesome, because you really kind of shortened your way of selecting people, because in this way you can just, you know, take a chosen bunch and choose the chosen ones within those chosen bunch.
I mean, I'm not sure for that. Like, I know that our HR has a lot of work, so...
I mean, obviously. Obviously, people are gonna seek for good working conditions. So basically, I assume why a lot of people would still apply to for work.
But from what I've heard is that there are also some people who do apply, even though that they are obviously not agreeing with our values, and they kind of they probably think, oh, this is just some IT company from the West, you know, they want to bring all of those, like that inclusiveness here, and then they apply and they don't get a job, of course, but it's not that they don't get a job probably just because of that, but
obviously.
The thing here is that we kind of created a community of people who are just, you know, open-minded and free with each other, and meaning that it's really important that if you, like, you kind of, at least from what I've seen in the past year, where we have kind of grow a lot as a company, is that I got an opportunity to meet really, really different people. Like a lot of people, different age, also different ethnicities.
Different cultural backgrounds.
Yeah, and also different stories, you know. So you can meet a lot of diverse people. I mean, sometimes maybe we are all even from the same city, like maybe we were born in the same city. But those are people who are, you know, really experienced. They maybe traveled the world or some things like that. And it's so interesting because the more open-minded people you have, kind of your culture just gets better, you know. Yeah. And in the end, like, we are there to, you know, produce some products, to to sell them, you know, to support them, to improve them. And basically, it's so nice when you just have outside of that, when you have really great working community, you know.
Before, when I was preparing for this episode, I actually glanced, or to be more honest, I stalked your social media accounts, and I could see that on social media you cover a lot of, from the perspective of human rights, important topics such as increasing productivity and improving the well-being of the employees, women empowerment, through the promotion, for example, of women leaders within your company, promoting the diversity, equality, equity, and so on. But you don't only cover these on social media. These topics are part of the workshops that you can also attend as an employee, right? And this means that you get to talk about gaslighting in the workplace,
Yeah.
you know, overthinking, how to write an email asking for days off, and so on, which is not a common thing within the companies, I would assume. I mean, I didn't have much experience with big corporations, but you know, I would assume that this is just not something that companies usually focus on, especially because everyone's, you know, in the capitalistic society that we live in, more focused on the profit rather than the quality of the you know, life that their employees have, and so. How do you think the fact that you get these conditions and the fact that you can talk openly about these mental health connected things, gender equality topics, LGBTQ plus topics, and so on, how do these things affect the employees within the cake? Within cake?
Yeah, as you said, unfortunately, not everyone does it, and I guess it's probably when you raise your profits, you also have more money to invest in that. Because I think that, especially coming from those studies, it's really important to invest in your own people. If you're investing only like in the products that you're making, you're not doing anything in the long term, because people will change, you know. So from my perspective, I would say that all of the workshops that we have, you know, they are kind of they make sense. And what I know from before is that usually we have kind of a topic for some year. And
you make like a yearly plan of something.
Yeah, I mean, our HR does. So they're pretty good at that. So they have also, I know that sometimes we had kind of workshops like regarding to some technical knowledge. So for example, someone from development team would maybe have a session with like entire company. So they're all voluntarily based, so you can come if you want to. They're not like obligatory, and you get an opportunity to learn something from them. Then of course anyone is welcome to share whatever they want. And in general, when it comes to the other part that you mentioned, to developing some soft skills, we are also strong on that point. For example, I think one of the last workshops I attended was how to set up boundaries. And that was so nice, you know. It's just so amazing that you actually are talking about that within your work, because of course we were focused.
Refreshing.
Yeah, refreshing. So it was kind of a moment where, you know, at least for me, when I'm attending those workshops, every time I just think like, yeah, that's why I really like it here, you know. So for example, for that workshop, of course, we are not focusing only on the workplace. We were talking, you know, also about our personal lives, about some boundaries, maybe within different spectrums, and then also about the workplace boundaries. So I think
So you do not only contextualize the workshops for the benefit of you being more productive in the workplace, but you also talk about different things that are affecting you in your life in general. So because obviously everyone brings their lives into work, whatever.
Yeah, but if you look at it the other way, maybe the more healthier you are in your personal life, you are gonna be more productive in your work, and that's a fact. I mean, so especially maybe coming firstly from the support team, I would say that's true. Yeah, because especially a lot of interactions during the day, you know, maybe with the customers or something like that. At least for me, I really did appreciate some of those workshops that we had, because they kind of, you know, remind you. It's really good when your employer reminds you that you need to take care of yourself. So that you need to kind of improve your own habits, to like any type of habit, like maybe how much are you working out, are you smoking, or like what is your diet, and so on. And of course, to kind of practice your resilience outside of your work, so you can also be, you know, a better colleague in the end.
Yeah, I mean, these all things affect the general atmosphere in your workplace. So if you, for example, created a huge disbalance between your work and life, created this work and life disbalance, you will definitely affect other people that you work with, because you will get frustrated, you will get more irritated, agitated, and so on.
And that happens to everyone. That's
obviously
the thing.
Obviously, but it's not really often that the companies and the employers that address these things. They usually let for these problems to get resolved on its own, without them actually meddling with the problems, which is damaging in the long run. And it's important, because of the human rights, for the employers to create an atmosphere and to create a habit of taking care of your own well-being within the company. To get back on inclusive policies that you have, studies have shown that workplaces with inclusive policies and strong support for LGBTQ plus employees tend to have better job satisfaction, mental health outcomes, and higher productivity. I had a chance to see on your website, as well as other communication channels that you have, the different ways that you clearly promote these values towards the public, the general public. How does this direct and open inclusion and inclusivity and equity affect you personally?
Well, I think that first of all, for each employee, it kind of creates, a safe space. Especially if you're a part of LGBTQ community, you at least know that you're gonna, that you're not gonna be harassed, bothered, questioned, or having to explain some of the things, having those moments where you're kind of when you wish that you don't have to answer, and so on. So we don't have those situations, and I think that we don't, because everyone is being attentive, to what they're gonna say or how they're gonna say it, and so on. And to be pretty honest, we don't even talk about that much, you know, because it's just, we all know that we all agree, and that's beautiful. Meaning that it's kind of in the long run, for you as an employee, it's kind of creating some sense of security, where maybe that part of your identity is just becoming one of the parts of the identity that you have. It's kind of not as identifying you as a whole person anymore, because now you're maybe a support agent, maybe you're a developer, maybe you're a designer within your professional career. And we can agree that our professional careers do determine one part of our identities. And I think it's always better to, relate to those parts maybe than to some that are kind of creating some marginalized space for us and putting us in a box or something like that.
Do you think that you communicating your values so well in a not so open society such as Serbian society and the general Balkan society, do you think it affects how people perceive your products, and do you think it kind of drives them away, or do you think it kind of creates this more personal connection with the product that you were selling?
Well, in general, I would say that from what I've seen and from a lot of reviews that I've been reading regarding the maybe selection process, or of course also a lot of people like to comment on the values that a company has. I would say that it was not easy for sure, but what I did like is that even outside of all of those things, our company was always very vocal about it. So they kind of did not care. I personally don't know if we had situations where maybe we were, lacking resources in human, like we were lacking employees due to this, or maybe we couldn't hire enough people and so on. But from what I've seen, like within the teams that we currently have, we, at least our recruiting team really brings quality people, and that's amazing.
So you focus on quality instead of quantity, and the comments are basically always going to be comments, like they're either going to be positive or negative, and they're always
at least that's my impression, so that's how I feel.
I mean, I definitely agree with you that you shouldn't focus on the comments. I mean, obviously, no matter what your values are, people are going to comment about it. I mean, people are opinionated, and they aren't going to comment anyway. Basically, whatever your stance on human rights is, whether you support it or don't, you're still going to, face either backlash and support. Depends on the group of people you come across, but obviously for the general society it is important to have human rights respected within the workplace.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, that's not the only thing how we define our values,
Obviously, but we focus here, like within this episode, we are just taking one small element of everything that Cake does.
But I wanted to say that for example, in the past year I've been also watching a lot of some streams from some hackathons where my colleagues attended and so on. It's always really great to listen to them when they talk about our company, how we do things and so on. And I think through that year, they really kind of try to explain how we are all doing, like how are we managing all of that. But yeah, I would say that maybe when you just start from there, that human rights are, really important within your working culture, then it has to be a foundation,
It has to be the norm.
Yeah, from there you're gonna build maybe a more healthy way how you handle conflicts, and then how you handle maybe over tasks and so on. So yeah,
basically respecting human rights and putting that as basis, as a norm. It allows you to create space for paying attention to different maybe something that people would describe less important things, but something that definitely affects the quality of the experience you as an employee have within collective, within the company that you work for. So this is a great conclusion that you made there, with human rights being the lowest standard, the minimum, the bare minimum, and then going from there, but making it a norm rather than something, some kind of a goal that you need to achieve. Thank you for that. So what would you say, like, how important is it for companies to respect human rights? I mean, like, how important is it to, have the human rights as the basis and then to focus on other things as well?
Well, after this experience, I would say it's the most important thing,
Yeah.
in general, I don't know. For at least at the moment, I can't imagine myself in another setting, and like I can't imagine myself in another company or in the same company, and that we are not working as we do. So, in that context, I would say that if I were to see that any other company has kind of a problems, you know, with the communication, with the maybe productivity levels and so on, maybe they should start taking care about, you know, the people as well. And I think when you have that human rights approach, and maybe I would maybe focus on human needs, when you kind of when you want to address everything that that is going on with each of your teams, employees, managers, team leaders, and so on. At that moment, I think you will resolve all the, you know, technical issues that you have and so on. So I would say it's super important.
I would agree, and obviously I hope that this conversation is going to inspire people to, you know, be more diligent in, you know, and more, you know, to just generally be more stubborn in demanding human rights to be respected from the perspective of an employee and from the perspective of an employer. So, you know, what does Cake do to support human rights? Obviously, you have these workshops that you attend, and also team building activities, I assume, where you also communicate your values and stuff. Some other mechanisms in place.
Yeah, in general, I would say that obviously for all the important days, you know, throughout the year, we have some events, but also we have, of course, some campaigns that I always like to follow. Of course, we are moving on to social networks as well, like to create campaigns for like the general public, but we also do things like in-house. So, for example, I think that in June, when it was like Pride Month, we had also a session about it. Like, it was maybe more a discussion where we were kind of talking about diversity in the workplace and how, like, what good has that brought us. And at that session, we had also an opportunity to share some personal stories and so on. So those moments, I think they're also, you know, really important. Also, when it comes to maybe 8th of March or something like that, I attended some really nice events. For example, I think last year we had theater play with two women. They are actually stand-up comedians, you know, and those things. So somehow I think it's important for every company, you know, to use all of the values that they want to represent to kind of also create some additional events for the employees, of course, because of fun, because of networking, because of connections that we create and so on. But I think in general we do a lot of amazing things that maybe I can't even recall right now. But maybe those are the ones that stuck with me.
I mean, I like the way Cake does that in a subtle way. It's not one of those companies that's all about you know, LGBTQ plus rights during June, and then puff, the June is gone, and they change their profile picture and it's it. You know, they call it a day. They're good for the year. They actually do it in more subtle, more sincere ways, which is obviously more important on the long run, and it actually does bring more positive consequences for the workplace environment and for the general society as well. Tell me, like you mentioned diversity, and in your opinion, how does diversity in workplace affect people's sense of inclusion and tolerance? For example, I don't know, you said that you reached out, Can
you just repeat?
Okay. Yes, of course.
I zoned out.
No worries. No worries, you were stuck on what other things Cake does, but you can't recall. That's okay. So in your opinion, you mentioned that you know, that there's a lot of diversity within the company, and I wanted to ask you, like, in your opinion, how does this affect people's sense of inclusion and the general sense of tolerance and so on? Do you grow as a person when you work in such an environment or not?
Most definitely. I mean, as I said in the beginning, I got an opportunity to meet a lot of different people. So first of all, I think that it creates kind of a safe space for you, meaning that you can express yourself in any way that you want, meaning that we don't set some corporate standards that are just being followed for no specific reasons. And we do get the job done, meaning that we do like behave professionally towards one another. But what's most important is that we kind of have the balance, between that. And what I noticed is that, after the 2 years, and of course some of the products existed even before I came to the company, what I noticed is that our work is growing over the time. So our profits are growing, we are growing as a company. And for me, maybe that would be the first indicator that we are doing something good. And each individual that is working within the company kind of has an opportunity, to bring out the best, maybe just to share whatever they want to. And that's like maybe regarding our general approach towards work and like how do we get the tasks done and so on. But when it comes to all of the other things that we discussed here and every individual, I would say that over the time you just get more confident. Yeah.
That's it.
I would say that over the time you just get more confident with yourself, with your skills, with your values, but maybe like with your own personality. So you have an opportunity to kind of connect with other people on such different levels. And we are kind of we always have a lot of different groups within the company, which is even harder when the company grows, because also we are kind of a remote first company. So for example, I was so surprised that I think maybe a month ago we created some board game event. So it was like totally done by the employees,
Oh, wow.
or sometimes someone calls out people for some movie or something like that. And I think that when you have that moment of inclusiveness all the time, you're gonna think in that direction too. Maybe like, oh, I would really like to, maybe watch this movie, or I don't know, go to some event. With whom do I share these interests? And sometimes when we are working in corporations, sometimes you're not thinking about your colleagues, especially if you're working remotely. But what I notice here is that people try, and they actually do succeed to connect between each other. Even
Outside of the workplace, right?
Yeah. So kind of it brings you a lot of different people, a lot of different personalities. And once again, when it comes to like work, I think we have like really diverse skilled people. So maybe some people have that diverse experience from working in another international company, or maybe they lived abroad for some period of time, or maybe they studied abroad,
or maybe they are coming from abroad.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. I mean, that seems like you're talking from a personal experience, which is obviously something that serves as a proof that everything that you're saying is actually true. And that is awesome to hear, that you actually can have friends within your colleagues, and that you actually, when there's that cliche sentence which a lot of companies and CEOs tend to say, like, we are all a big family, la la la.
Yeah.
It seems like you actually are, some sort of family, that is actually working towards a common goal, but is also working with each other and is building connections with each other, which is awesome. So I want to go back to human rights and everything that Cake does. Obviously is not necessarily what the society that you work within supports or even knows about. So I want to go back to that segment and ask you, do you think it's hard to be inclusive and respect human rights, even if you're an employer that operates in a country which doesn't have the legislative system to support such approaches?
Well, maybe I can ask some of them how was it when it was a much smaller company.
Yeah.
But I would say that probably it is hard. Imagine yourself maybe being a small business owner, and you want to have all of those policies. You want to have that corporate culture. You want to have your values, and maybe you open, I don't know, a donut shop, and people just boycott you. So I think it's sorry. So I think it probably was hard, but the thing is that we are operating on a global market. And I mean, when you use our product, probably it doesn't say what our values are. So yeah, but I think lately actually a lot of people have interested to learn about the companies, maybe out of the softwares that they're using. So I would say that building that kind of a brand as a company is really important, and we kind of do that through various channels. So it's not only social networks, it's maybe also, I don't know, some blogs that we are creating and so on, that are also being read by the wider community. So not only is Serbia, but actually people who are using the services and so on. In general, I would say that it just feels nice to work in that company. But how hard was it for them to build all of that? I can imagine it was super hard. I probably would say that they for sure faced a lot of not supportive comments, maybe let's call them that way, when it comes to maybe to local people in the Balkans and so on. But I'm really kind of glad that they did stick with their values. They didn't back down.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too, because obviously we live in such a period of time where if you are not actively, supporting causes or promoting certain values, but just rather silently, watching the oppressed staying oppressed and so on, you are basically, helping the oppressor at this point. And we are living in such a period of time where it's important to be vocal about these things, and it's crucial to create even subcultures, such as, a workplace environment that is respecting human rights, and that can serve, as I mentioned in the very beginning, as a role model to everyone who is trying to start something, whether that be a company, whether that be, a class or a friend group or a family. You need to promote certain values in order, if these values speak to you and if these values are something that you agree with. So kudos to your company, to your work culture and corporate culture. Thank you for being here in this episode, and thank you for speaking up about something that's really important, and sharing such personal insights about your experience. I hope you had a great time with us.
Yeah, I did. Thank you very much for inviting me. And yeah, I'm really glad to kind of have the opportunity to share about our work, because I think it's really important, to learn that there are companies that will support you in that way, that will kind of give you the opportunity and just let you do you, and yeah,
and be you,
and be you, yeah.
Yeah, and I hope that the people that are listening to this episode just get the general message of demanding human rights is not being selfish, it's rather demanding for basic bare minimum to be fulfilled. And I hope that your story inspires them, because obviously it's so noticeable that you're passionate about what you do, and especially about the company that you work with. and 4. So thank you once again, and thank you for listening to this episode of Youth Squad. Stick around for another one. Thank you for listening to Youth Squad. My name is Maria. The Youth Squad podcast series is recorded under a small-scale project in the field of youth called Voicehood of Youth, which will cover 4 topics: human rights, gender equality, European multiculturalism, inclusion and diversity, and active participation. The project is implemented within the Erasmus Plus program and is financed by the Swedish National Agency. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you stay tuned for another episode.